session. We are going to get started. Good evening, everyone, and thank you for being here today. My name is Mikaela Shaheen. I'm a reporter at Community Impact, and I'll be serving as your moderator. Before we begin, I want to briefly explain the format so everyone, candidates and audience alike, knows what to expect. Each race will follow the same structured process. I'll begin with a brief introduction of the office. All candidates in each race will be asked the same questions. Each candidate will have up to 2 minutes to respond to each question. We'll rotate responses to ensure fairness and go based off ballot order. After the questions, each candidate will have up to 2 minutes for closing remarks to share any final thoughts they'd like voters to consider. To respect everybody's time and ensure fairness and we stay on schedule, responses will be timed. I may gently step in if needed. This serves as a 30-second reminder. You have 30 seconds left when I raise this hat. This forum is designed to be informative, respectful, and focused on helping voters better understand the candidates and the offices they seek. With that, let's get started with our first race. Montgomery City Council, Place 4. A city council member helps make decisions on city ordinances, budgets, infrastructure investments, and development matters. Council members are responsible for representing residents, weighing community feedback, and helping shape how the city grows and delivers services. This is a 2-year term. Cheryl Fox and Ifran Lucas are your candidates. Today, Cheryl Fox is present. I will ask her 3 questions with 2 minutes per question. You ready?
Yes, ma'am.
Awesome. Time will start after I finish the question. Montgomery continues to grow, and City Council often has to weigh development opportunities against neighborhood concerns. What should the city's top priority be when reviewing new development proposals?
I do believe that our top priority is always our town, our community. And sometimes it extends a little further outside of the city bounds, but it's always based on what our residents are needing. Our residents need our core values of, of police protection, water, sewer, and a good place to live. But I really do not believe, I believe that our main focus is never on the developments coming in, is how the development is going to benefit our residents and our small business people who are here too. Some of them may not live here, but they have such a vested interest in our city that I see no reason not to consider them just as you would a resident. That is my main concern, is that I always think about who the residents are, who the small businesses are, who the large businesses are too. I mean, that doesn't necessarily exclude them, but I do feel like that we need to focus primarily on all of our core essentials and the fact of how we are going to maintain this in any future developments.
Question 2. Infrastructure needs often become more visible as the city grows. What gaps, if any, do you see in today's roads, drainage, utilities, or public facilities, and how would you approach addressing them?
Oh, that is a really big question. We have a lot of issues. There's no doubt about it. But I haven't lived here since 1975, so I probably don't see as bad as someone who's maybe only been here for 5 or 10 years. I know that our roads need repairs. I know that that we need to really focus on making sure everything works properly, that your toilets flush, that that you have your everything works well. But on the other hand, I remember back when there were sometimes 2 or 3 days we wouldn't have water. So I think that all of our infrastructure that we have now is so much better than we've had in the last 5 years. And I do believe that we're working very well with our staff here and making sure that that's done. And I think that we've made some really good choices in making sure we have people in place that do make sure it's get done, that our residents have all of the qualities of life that they need.
Your last and final question. How would you keep residents informed and involved in city decisions, especially on issues that directly affect their neighborhoods or daily lives?
Just a couple of days ago, there was a community call for the residents to show up at Mount Sinai Baptist Church, and there was quite a few, and so we heard from that. And I do believe at one time we have tried that, but I do believe as a resident, a lot of times if we will just have the community come to city meetings or to even request some kind of meetings, I think that would bring any issues that they have. Primarily, when you come to city council, you can bring your concerns, as they did last meeting. There was a concern about drainage and ditches and stuff in a city street here. So at that point, hopefully it brings to mind what is really needed by the residents, and I want to include all residents. We have a full 4 miles, and I want to make sure that not only certain residents are done, but all residents are.
That concludes the questions. You now have 2 minutes for your closing remarks.
Oh, well, for my closing remarks, I would really thank everyone for coming. I see a lot of friends and see people I don't know, but I love it that people really love my town as much as I love it. I raised my 3 children here. They went through the Montgomery Schools District. That is why we originally came here, was my children to go to Montgomery School. They have now, of course, they said when they graduated they'd never come back, but 2 of them live back here again inside city limits. And I feel like we have a really, really great town. I feel like hopefully that, even though we are growing, that we still have a feeling of community, a feeling of love and respect and dignity for everyone that lives in this town. Thank you, and I appreciate it.
Thank you for your participation. We will now move on to the next race, which is the City of Montgomery Mayor. I'll just wait for a thumbs up from everybody once y'all are situated. Great. This will follow the same procedure as we just had. The difference is there are 4 candidates. So we will go by ballot order. Ballot order for everybody in attendance is Art Aguilar, Sarah Countrywin, Mark Guess, and Kirsten Goldenig.
Actually, the ballot marks me as number 3, so Mark is first.
Okay.
We're sitting in order.
Oh.
Excuse me. Okay. Thank you for bringing that to my attention.
No problem.
So we have Mark Guess first, Sarah Countryman, Art Aguilar, followed by Kirsten Goldenig. We will follow the format as earlier. Each candidate will have the opportunity to answer the question first. There are 4 questions for this forum. Mark Guess will answer first. Then on the second round, Sarah Countryman will answer first. On the third round, Art Aguilar will answer first. And on the 4th round, Kristen Goldenig will answer first. Excuse me. Are there any questions as far as the procedure? I will begin with the description of the mayor. The mayor serves as the city's chief elected official, helps set the tone and direction for city council meetings, and represents the city in public discussions. This is a 2-year term. I will begin recording time after the question I ask is completed. I will repeat the question each time I ask it per candidate. Question 1, Mr. Guess. Montgomery is facing continued growth and development. What is your vision for how the city should grow over the next 2 years? And where do you believe the city should draw the line on development, if at all?
So you're right, growth is going to come. There's been a tremendous amount of development, both recently and the plans are for continued growth. I think the way that we prepare for that is we make sure that we're ready for it. We make sure the infrastructure is ready for it. So things like water, traffic, and I think it's important that the residents understand what those plans are. I think in order to kind of build confidence around the city's ability to handle that and have their arms around it, I think communication is going to be really important in terms of you know, what's happening, what the city's doing to alleviate and prepare for some of those transitions. I know the HEB is one example of a pretty important event that's going to be happening over the next several months. Do we have the infrastructure set up? Are the traffic patterns going to be modified in order to help alleviate the traffic in an already congested section of the city? So those are the things I think are going to be really important. Adhering to existing ordinances, I think, is going to be critical as well. So I know planning and zoning has the authority to comment and enforce some of those regulations. So I think it's managing the growth with the tools that we have and making sure that there's clear visibility around the expectations, not only for the city and the residents, but also for the developers and the new people that come in.
I will repeat the question to you, Ms. Countryman. Montgomery is facing continued growth and development. What is your vision for how the city should grow over the next 2 years? And where do you believe the city should draw the line on development, if at all?
Great question. When I ran my first race in 2018, I said the train has left the station and we've got to prepare for it, and that's exactly what we have done. We had a capital improvement project workshop last week, and that yielded that we have $134 million in front of us for capital improvements. That means water, sewer, roads. And this city has already earmarked, and we know where $110 million of that is coming from. That's a 15-year, it was a 15-year program and project that we're projecting ahead of time. That alleviates the taxpayers because of the development coming in. When they buy their groceries, when they buy retail, when they buy their food, they have gas here. The people coming through our city or living outside of our city limits are helping build this city. As far as development comes, HEB, for instance, yes, traffic is going to be an issue. However, there were traffic studies done. Those are blessed by the engineers. Those are blessed by TxDOT. There's a lot of hands involved when we are planning the city. It's not just a vote on council or a discussion behind closed doors. So we leave that up to also the experts that we have hired as our contractors. They know our needs. Currently, our city engineer has been with us for over a decade, so he knows the city very, very well. We have a fourth water plant coming on. We are resurrecting an old sewer plant so that we don't have to take on those new sewer plant costs. It's a lot more economical to resurrect what we have. The development coming, the city's already platted. What is commercial, what is residential, it's already there. We are on the map because our neighbor to the east and our neighbor to the south are in water moratoriums. You will not have that here because we have planned.
I will repeat the question to you now, Mr. Aguilar. Montgomery is facing continued growth and development. What is your vision for how the city should grow over the next 2 years? And where do you believe the city should draw the line on development, if at all?
Thank you. Well, I'm glad to be here. As you quoted, the mayor has specific obligations and duties. In fact, Section 22.037 of the Local Government Code says that the mayor should put out an agenda of what the mayor believes should be within the council's realm. And so, in my opinion, looking at this city, there is no way that you can grow and sustain that development simply by a 15-year plan. Montgomery is already growing. Like the mayor said, the train has left the station. So the problem is today, I think a great way to generate revenue without increasing the taxes on the taxpayer is to look to other forms like annexation. There's a lot of surrounding communities that are not in Montgomery, but have the Montgomery name. And I guarantee you a lot of these communities do not want to be Conroe ETJ. And so there is a legal method to get these communities inside Montgomery and use that revenue right now, not 15 years from now. And so the reason why annexation is so important is because the state has no legal obligation to give the city money. In other words, the state doesn't have to say, we're going to give the city of Montgomery $10 million for the next year. But what the state does have is the ability for a type A general law city like this one to grow. And one of the ways you can do that is by exceeding the 5,000 population threshold. Right now, the city of Montgomery is stuck in what you call a general A type law city. And that's because we haven't gone over 5,000. The minute we go over 5,000, we can create our own ordinances, regardless of what the state has. And so I think annexation is a great way to get revenue right now, not 15 years from now.
Ms. Gildenegg, I will repeat and ask you the same question. Montgomery is facing continued growth and development. What is your vision for how the city should grow over the next 2 years, and where do you believe the city should draw the line on development, if at all?
I agree with everybody, the city is growing, but we are limited as to how far the city can grow as far as residents. And I love that about this town. We can stay small and we can still compete, but we need to focus on the downtown area and the smaller businesses and making parking adequate and not a dangerous situation that it is now, and having shoppers cross busy roads, having a universal transit system downtown that will link all of the retail spots that are coming from down 105 all the way up over to Ransom's, to the putt-putt place, everywhere in between. If we focus on small businesses, we will create a destination place where people can come and spend their money, leave it, and go home and leave us alone. That is my vision. I want to be able to compete with Tomball and Spring, and there's absolutely no reason why we can't.
That concludes the first question for all candidates. We will now go on to question 2. Sarah Countryman will answer that question first, Art Aguilar second, Kristen Gildenegg third, Mark Guest fourth. Are there any questions going forward? Question 2, Ms. Countryman. As new neighborhoods and commercial projects come in, infrastructure often struggles to keep pace. What specific steps would you push for to address roads, drainage, utilities, and traffic? And how do you make sure growth pays for the demand it creates?
Great question. So I started a mayor's roundtable with mayors from around the area, and they are shocked that we have the savings account that we have and that we operate the manner that we do, because we have impact fees. We don't have a water moratorium because we collect those, and that helps pay for the infrastructure. Those dollars are very specific, and that's how those other cities got in trouble. What we do is, when there is a developer coming in, we have a development agreement, and what we look at is traffic patterns. What's the impact on our traffic? What's the impact on our roads? What's the impact on the water? Do we have capacity in our today and in the future for those water and sewer needs? Also, we have added, for instance, Briarly, that's right down the road here. Today, they are under construction. Once they finish the construction, we have asked the developer to use his own funds to repair our roads, because Now, if you go down that road, it's terrible, but we know that that's a tax on our road. So we are getting new roads due to this development, which also helps the residents, the new and old residents. We did the same thing when Home Depot came. They put in new roads. The Ransom's property, there's gonna be new roads around that from the developer. We don't just not take the residents at heart and top of mind when we negotiate. We negotiate to take that burden off the residents. We make them put in their own water. We will partner in some cases, but HEB, for instance, we didn't partner anything. We're not giving them any taxes, any tax break whatsoever. We make sure that what they're using in our city, they pay for and do not put the burden on the taxpayer. We're very conscious about that. Thank you, Mayor.
I will now ask you the same question. As new neighborhoods and commercial projects come in, infrastructure often struggles to keep pace. What specific steps would you push for to address roads, drainage, utility, and traffic? And how would you make sure growth pays for the demand it creates?
Sure, thank you. One of the reasons why I decided to run for mayor is because I live in Waterstone. Currently, the city is involved in a lawsuit with the developer, Steve Bowen. And so those creeks that are aside from Waterstone, they don't have any water. They were supposed to have water, and they were supposed to be connected to Lake Conroe. Now, I do see the city actually trying to find an end to this by suing the developer, but that's stuck in litigation. It's been there for over a year. And so that's exactly what we got to do, hold the developers accountable. But even before that, one of the things that we have to do is ensure that our contracts with developers actually pass muster and protect the citizen. That lawsuit involving Steve Bowen with Waterstone, that's reactive. That's not proactive. That's taking a step to cover up and try to get some money back from him to satisfy the consumers and the homeowners of Waterstone. We should have done that before by negotiating that contract with the council, reading it carefully, and having someone with legal background who would understand how to hold a developer liable and who would understand how to read a contract so this doesn't happen again. Waterstone has over 100 homes, and all those people, I can guarantee you, who are my neighbors, dislike the entire situation. And so part of that is negotiating good contracts so the consumer and the homeowner, the citizen, is not affected by it in the long run.
Sue.
Out of respect for the forum, I will please ask that attendees keep their comments to themselves.
Serious.
Thank you. I will now ask you the same question. As new neighborhoods and commercial projects come in, infrastructure often struggles to keep pace. What specific steps would you push for to address roads, drainage, utilities, and traffic? And how would you make sure growth pays for the demand it creates?
I feel like these developers, I realize that that's negotiated early on with the developers as far as taking care of the roads afterwards, but I feel like additionally making sure that they prep everything and the roads and the ditches and drainage prior to and better than they have, because they don't. But having them prep everything prior to building or prior to even starting a build is one thing that can stop the excessive damage that's done later. Secondarily, I think when you focus on a large neighborhood like Briarly, that's absolutely necessary. But I think too, the smaller independent builds that are going on that don't have any recourse for the damage that they do is also something that should be considered. I think overall that anybody doing any kind of new build needs to have serious, I live next door to a monstrosity of a home that should have never been built on that small of a lot. And I can tell you, I have debris being thrown in my yard on a daily basis, and nobody's watching it. Absolutely nobody's watching it. So independent builds also need accountability as well.
We will now move on to question 3. Nope. Oh, I'm so sorry. I'm so sorry. I will repeat the same question to you. As new neighborhoods and commercial projects come in, infrastructure often struggles to keep pace. What specific steps would you push for to address roads, drainage, utilities, and traffic? And how would you make sure growth pays for the demand it creates?
I'll start with the pays for part of that question first. So I've got 35 years or so experience in the oil and gas industry, and I know that organizations perform differently when oil is at 100 versus when oil is at $30 a barrel. When oil is at 100, you just get a little bit sloppy, right? And I think there's a potential here that with the projected growth, there may be a mentality here that, oh, we've got plenty of money, we can get a little bit of sloppy on the execution side. One thing that concerned me a bit when I looked at the financials is that our costs have grown on the expense side by like 30% over the last 2 years. So that's kind of a red flag that if we don't keep our costs under control, we're not going to be able to keep up, right? And every dollar that you have to spend on additional costs to maintain the roads, the drainage, and utilities is one less dollar you have to do other projects that you want to complete. So that's the first part of it. The second one is we've got to get really good at execution, right? Are we able to enforce the agreements that are in place? Are we able to follow up to make sure that the developers are performing the way that they're supposed to perform? And even internally, are the projects that we're executing, how are we doing those well? So I think there's the challenge is getting bigger, we're getting bigger, and I think we just need to be able to step up our capabilities, our resources in order to be able to execute efficiently and effectively in this growing environment. I mean, I don't have the details. Sarah could probably list off the number of projects that we have going on, but it's an order of magnitude higher than where we were a few years ago, and the organization needs to be able to grow the skills and the capabilities in order to execute against those plans.
Now it's the third question. We'll start with Mr. Aguilar, Ms. Gilday. Then we go to Mr. Guess, and lastly, Ms. Countryman. Question 3. Residents often say they want more clarity from local government, especially when it comes to development decisions and city priorities. If elected, how would you communicate between City Hall and the public, particularly when decisions are unpopular or controversial?
That's an excellent question. So I think part of that weight on that question lies on the citizen for a grassroots effort to get involved. Obviously, you cannot fit 3,000 people in this, in this chamber. But so part of the responsibility is on the citizen to make themselves aware. These meetings here are open meetings. You can come and go as you please. The problem is that not the entire city shows up. Not that we have the space for it. But a good measure and a good way of doing that is that, first of all, Montgomery is actually very small. We see cyclists cycling around it all the time. And so there are ways to get involved with the HOAs and the neighborhoods. Send grassroots efforts down there. I can easily see a mayor or a councilman walking down to the HOA meeting in Town Creek, in Terra Vista, in Montgomery Bend. And that's an easy way and practical way to reach the citizen. Because let's be honest, let's face it, people here work for a living, right? They have to get home, they have kids to pick up, they have to go to school. And so it's difficult for them to make these meetings on Tuesday night at 6:30. So one way that I can be instrumental is reaching out with a grassroots effort, going to these meetings and speaking, hey, this is what's going on, A, B, or C. And obviously you also have social media. And I think social media is a powerful weapon. And so, but again, there's, a handful of neighborhoods in the city of Montgomery, good 7 or 8 that can be easily reached and easily drivable, even walk. And so I think that's a great way to have a grassroots connection with the citizens.
I will now ask you the same question. Residents often say they want more clarity from local government, especially when it comes to development decisions and city priorities. If elected, how would you communicate between City Hall and the public, particularly when decisions are unpopular or controversial?
Number one, I would love to be able to make things easier to find on the city website, like the webpage, just being able to find minutes or our current budget it takes forever to find, and most people will just give up and just be like, I just don't even care at this point. The increased social media, absolutely. We have a very small social media presence, if at all, and that lends itself back to the concept of creating a tourist destination, some place that people just can share the charming side of Montgomery and the uniqueness behind it and appreciate it for what it is, the little postage stamp hallmark town that we are. We also need a more approachable government, period, here locally. I don't feel like any of the citizens feel very much that they can approach the government with their issues, or the mayor or any of the city council members, unless they know them personally. I know when you know them personally, they're very approachable, but I think making that more approachable persona, so making them, more well-known to everybody, even through a city newsletter, a monthly newsletter, something other than just the calendar that rolls out with your water bill. Maybe even a highlight of a particular person each month, just to kind of get to know them and make them a bit more human.
Mr. Guest, I will now ask you the same question. Residents often say they want more clarity from local government, especially when it comes to development decisions and city priorities. If elected, how would you communicate between City Hall and the public, particularly when decisions are unpopular or controversial?
For me, I think it starts with getting engagement and getting buy-in up front. So I talk about a vision, and for me, that's really a story about how things need to play out, or how the citizens want things to play out over the next several years. So the way you get buy-in is you have conversations up front with as many people as you can, workshops, get their ideas, give them some ownership in the story. And once there's alignment on that, this is something I think it probably needs to be done every 4 or 5 years, where you can really energize and get involvement of the people up front. And from there, every project that is done is tracked to the vision, to the story. Everybody understands how a particular project fits into that story. There's excitement, there's engagement. You won't have to worry about as much about a lack of understanding, because there'll be an understanding up front on where we're headed and what direction we're going, right? So I think it's really getting the constituents accountable and part of that story, and then it becomes much easier to broadcast information. Bringing people to, relying on people to take the time out of their evening when they're trying to get their kids to practice, trying to get dinner on the table, making sure the kids are doing their homework. It just doesn't work that way. You got to be able to broadcast, and the way you do that is you have a story up front that everybody understands, and you tell people how particular actions fit into that story, and what they're doing can help move that story along. And I think that's really the way to create something special and lead to more success in getting to where this city really needs to be and really reaching our full potential.
I will now ask the same question to you, Ms. Countryman. Residents often say they want more clarity from local government, especially when it comes to development decisions and city priorities. If elected, how would you communicate between City Hall and the public, particularly when decisions are unpopular or controversial?
So decisions being made, there's a lot, oftentimes there are public hearings on the agenda, that the citizens can come in and give their account or their feedback or their concerns and let the council know. I agree that a lot of the onus is on the citizen because sending out a newsletter, that's another resource that would have to do that, and then that's postage. And by the time they get it, so we as electeds are not allowed after, I don't know if anybody up here knows this, but after like a city council meeting, we can't go to our page or a page and recount and recall the meeting. Because then people, if we are describing it through our eyes and not actually what's on the minutes. So getting news from City Hall is from City Hall. That is on the website. The website's come a long way. We are looking at upgrading the website, and we are in the middle of that now. There's no doubt that it's a little archaic, but better than what we used to have. But you can go to the website. You can read the local newspapers, Community Impact, y'all do a good job. Ruben does a great job as well. There are things on social media that you can also see. And frankly, listen to the meetings on Tuesday night. They're live streamed. If you are in the car, you can listen to it. Most people in this room have my phone number. I engage with the community daily. I actually had somebody call me yesterday. They said, I got your number from so-and-so, and I want to sit and talk to you. Great. I stay out in the public. I stay available, and I have no problem answering questions and hitting head on. Because I'll tell you right now, this City Hall is transparent, and we have no problem with any question that any resident or outside resident has to ask.
We are now on the fourth and final question. I will start with you, Ms. Skildenig. Leadership in a small but fast-growing city often means balancing competitive interests. Longtime residents, business owners, developers, and new families moving in. How would you make decisions when those groups want different things, and what principles would guide you?
So that's the eternal balance. You're never going to please everybody all the time, but I think hearing the loudest voices and considering the wants and needs of everyone, I feel like there's always a happy medium or a sort of middle of the road that everybody can be happy with. It may not be exactly what they want, but it might be what they need. I think communication is key, and educating people on what they think they want and then educating them as to why we're kind of leaning this way and why this would be the best decision. Just throwing things out there and saying, well, we're going to do this and this is what's happening, it kind of throws everybody. You have 10% that's elated and happy, and that we have a Home Depot right around the corner, and then you have 70% that's irritated by it. But I don't think anybody really felt like that they were forewarned or felt like that there was any kind of preemptive education as far as what would happen and what would follow with that. So I think education is the key to trying to find a middle ground to make everybody happy.
Mr. Guest, I will now ask you the same question. Leadership in a small but fast-growing city often means balancing competing interests. Longtime residents, business owners, developers, and newly families moving in. How would you make decisions when those groups want different things, and what principles would guide you?
Yeah, I think it starts with making sure there's a clear understanding of what the goals and objectives and priorities are of each of those groups. So it's going to require conversations, it's going to require workshops, it's going to require a lot of work in order to get visibility around how each of those groups want to see things play out in the city. And then I think those groups are willing to make trade-offs, right? If there's a belief in a common goal, if there's a belief in a vision, and there's buy-in on what we want to accomplish. I think everyone here loves the city. We still get people moving in. We want to protect what's here. We want to protect the spirit. And I think if that is always in front of us. How are we going to maintain the special character that we've created? I think people are willing to make trade-offs, and then it becomes apparent on city leadership to get creative on how you can provide one group what they believe is required, but it may be taking something else away from another group. And then how do you kind of work that so everyone feels like they've won, or at least they have enough confidence and trust in the direction that we're going, that even if I don't get what I want now, I'm confident that in the next round things will work out better, right? So I think it's going to be an ability to really stay in tune with the constituents and be creative on how to make those trade-offs.
Thank you. Ms. Countryman, I will now ask you the same question. Leadership in a small but fast-growing city often means balancing competing interests. Longtime residents, business owners, developers, and newer families moving in. How would you make decisions when those groups want different things, and what principles would guide you?
So we are living that today. I've lived that quite a bit, actually. I mean, I've got a husband that used to drive cattle through this town and can't believe how big it is. However, I am all for small government. So we can't tell the landowners when they can sell their property, and we can't tell the landowners who can purchase their property. So when I moved here, I didn't expect the door to shut behind me, and nobody else moved here. I moved here for the green pastures and the cows, but that's not what's here now, right? It's going away. So I understand those that are from here, and I understand those that are just moving here, moved here last week. They both still have needs. I know it's hard watching the landscape and the topography change. However, progress is here, and we cannot stop it. Now, what we can do, and what City Council has done, is cut big box stores out to the east. They won't be coming past the fire station. All down 105 to the high school, all commercial facing, will be mom and pop and entrepreneurship. That's the plan the council has, so that what makes Montgomery unique today is when you are downtown, there's the proprietor behind the desk. You don't get that in Houston. You don't hardly get that in Conroe even. That's what makes us special. So you still have that old feel, but also you have the new national brands that are coming to town, and you have that out east, and you keep it out there, right? So we want to maintain this feel for our newcomers, but as well for our legacy and those that have been here a long time. It is a balance, and not everybody is going to be happy. But at the same time, as a council, we keep it top of mind. What is that going to do to us? How is that going to feel? We talk to the businesses coming in. What is your building going to look like? Is that going to match what our vision is? We gave Home Depot a hard time. We gave HEB a hard time. We've had town halls. I don't see many faces that are in here that went to the town halls. We had 5 of them. And thank you.
Mr. Aguilar, I will now ask you the same question. And my audience, please to be courteous and respectful of the forum. Leadership in a small but fast-growing city often means balancing competing interests. Longtime residents, business owners, developers, and newer families moving in. How would you make decisions when those groups want different things, and what principles would guide you?
Thank you. I was at a meeting a few months back when the chief of police stood up and was talking about the crime prevention district and how all that money generated would benefit the city. There was large talks, and I think everyone is aware, and there's a big split on using Jim's Hardware for a 20,000 square foot police station and a 15,000 square foot city hall, a new one. So they're going to refurbish the bottom floor and the top floor. Obviously, there's competing interests here. Two sides don't agree. But I can tell you this, in November of 2024, you all voted to create that crime prevention district. It was on your ballot. There was 2 measures the city put out, and I think people are nodding their head, they see where I'm going. That's why we have elections. For the major issues, right, it's a very practical answer. For the major issues the city faces, put it on the voter. In November of 2024, there's 2 measures the city put on the ballot. Number 1, the creation of the crime prevention district, which is extremely beneficial. The second one was extending the council and mayor's terms from 2 years to 4 years. People overwhelmingly supported the creation of the Crime Prevention District, but said, no, if you want to be reelected, we're going to keep it to 2 years, not 4 years. And so they overwhelmingly rejected that measure. So the answer is very simple. Put it on the voter, right? So every year we're going to have elections. We have elections this year on MISD. We have elections for the mayor and for the councilman. Guess what? Next year we're going to have some other elections. And so that is a practical way to get a barometer and the temperature of the citizens. And that will reflect the people that are moving in and the people that are still there. For example, I relayed about annexation. There's a lot of people in here who actually don't live in the city of Montgomery. They live in Grand Harbor. But guess what? They don't want to be in Conroe, they want to be in Montgomery. That's why they're in here. So annexation is a great way to bring those people in with the shared views, the same views that we all have.
Thank you. That concludes the prepared questions. Now each candidate will have 2 minutes for closing remarks. We will go off the positions that you see them in here, starting with Mr. Mark Guess. Your 2 minutes start when you say your first word.
Okay. First of all, thanks for coming. It's been interesting. I am not a politician. I have never run for office or held office. I've voted Republican for the last 40 years, but don't know any of the local Republican groups, county or state. I think my story is pretty simple. Moved here almost 30 years ago. My wife Elizabeth and I raised our girls, all graduates of Montgomery High. I was fortunate enough to retire after a long career in oil and gas last summer, and I want to serve the city. I think that's what my next objective is and what my next focus should be. And I think I bring some good skills and capabilities into that role. I've done the business side, budgets, project management, negotiations. To be honest, the city's got those resources. Where I think I can really have some impact and really kind of set myself apart from some of the other candidates is maybe on some of those softer skills, right? On how things get done. The role of mayor, it's one where there's no salary, no staff, really no decision making. So it's really an influence model, right? And what I've learned over the years is the way you influence people is you build relationships, right? And I think I'm really good at that. It starts with being able to listen to people, right? It's getting them engaged. I found that if you're someone that people want to work with, you can get better results. And even on negotiations, if you're someone that can walk away from a negotiation where both parties feel like they've won, they'll come back later and work with you when you find a situation that you hadn't anticipated.
Thank you.
Thanks.
Ms. Countryman, you have the same 2 minutes. I will begin your time when you say your first word.
I'm a fifth-generation Texan. My roots run deep in Texas. Being the birthplace of the Texas flag and being the mayor that got that trademarked, I'm very privileged and honored to have served this town since 2018 for 7 years. There was a 1 year I was off. I will tell you, there's nobody in this room more passionate than I am about this town. I also am very proud of what we have built here. We've been considerate, we have been thoughtful, and we have done the right thing for Montgomery since 2018. Our first budget, me as mayor, we had a $3.2 million budget. We were scrapping. Today, or this year, we approved almost a $15 million budget. That's massive growth. In our city, that's massive growth. That's allowing us to have a project for downtown to update McCowan Street. It's going to be beautiful and something that everybody's going to be proud of. There's going to be pains, but it's going to be awesome. There's also the new City Hall and Police Department. Behind these doors are offices with boxes to the ceiling. We've got to get out of here. We've got to have some space. Buying Jim's hardware was the right thing to do for the citizens. It's going to take us into the next 50 years at today's cost. We are also able to update McAllen and update City Hall, Jim's, for the police department at no tax hike, dollars out of our pocket already. That's fantastic. Now, I ask you for your vote. There are 3 things that I want to accomplish in the next 2 years, my last 2 final years. HEB, McGowan Street Project, and City Hall. My fingerprints are on those today. I'd like to see those completed.
Mr. Aguilar, you have 2 minutes. I will begin time when you say your first word.
Thank you. I have not given you hyperbole. I have not given you exaggeration. I have given you practical ways to take care of this city. I gave you solutions in less than 2 minutes. Let me tell you this. I'm all about being proactive, not reactive. Most of you likely don't know that just last week, the city applied for a water permit from the Lone Star Water Conservation District, just last week. I made a post, and I'm very vocal on social media about the lack of water in the city. How did the city react? They applied for another permit, and I'll be glad to give you that information. I am proactive, not reactive. For those of you who are in business, I'm all about business. I'm a business litigation attorney. I set up businesses for people. I know what it's like. I know what it's like to deal with a client who has tax issues, a client who has HR issues, who has issues with their business, how to set up, how to deal with a customer flow with lawsuits, accounts that are owed. And so I encourage you to take that into consideration. Second thing, I'm also well-versed in construction law. So I already know how to read a construction contract. I already know how to make determinations on the unintended consequences of signing contracts and what's likely to happen in 10 years. Third of all, I already know the law. I know I have a background in government. Here is the handbook for mayors and council members. It's about 50 pages. This is how someone new who doesn't know government learns how to do their role. It's a small little binder. That's all it is. I don't need to read this. It's great information. It's great. It's a great way to educate someone. But I did not wake up last week to say, I'm going to run for mayor. I have a background in government. I'm a second-generation service member. My dad was in the Marine Corps. I'm a former teacher. I taught world history, so I care about the historic vibe. I was in the Army.
Thank you. You now have 2 minutes. I will begin time when you say your first word.
Thank you. I too am not a politician. I'm a mom of 6, so maybe that makes me a politician. I'm not sure. I have owned businesses. I have bought and sold businesses. I currently am in real estate. I love this town with every fiber of my being, and I tell you, I try to get every single client I have to buy a house here. And they're like, Christy, I wanted like the other Spring Branch. Why did you bring me here? I also am a 5th generation Houstonian and Texan. We moved out here 6 years ago, and I absolutely will do anything I can to protect this town. My vision for this town is to keep us small and to keep us safe and to keep us to where my kids and anybody's kids can still walk to the neighborhood store and walk to the library and they ride their bikes around town, and we can have neighborhood parades and we can maintain our integrity as a historic town, because we are more than just the birthplace of the Texas flag. This is our community, this is our home, this is our future. And it means everything to all of us.
That concludes the forum. I thank y'all for y'all's participation. My name is Nika Shaheen. It has been a pleasure, and we are concluded.
Thank you guys.